When I went to go bowl on tour, Norm was still competing, and it was incredibly surreal for me to be competing next to my idol, to be competing next to someone who I saw a glimpse of on a tape in Australia for the first time years ago. If I was going to become great at any one, the time that I would have to dedicate it to it would mean that I would have to give up something to do that. When I was honest with myself, I came up with a few answers, and I'm like, yeah, you're really not good at that. You need to check your ego a little bit, leave the arrogance at the door, be okay with the idea that you're not great at this, and become great at it.
Welcome to In Search of Excellence, where we meet entrepreneurs, CEOs, entertainers, athletes, motivational speakers, and trailblazers of excellence with incredible stories from all walks of life. My name is Randall Kaplan. I'm a serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and the host of In Search of Excellence, which I started to inspire and motivate all of us to achieve excellence in our lives. My guest today is Jason Belmonte, who is considered the best bowler in history. He has won a record 15 major championships, 4 more than anybody else in history, and has been named PBA Player of the Year 7 times. He has had 27 career 300 games in PBA Tour events and is the only second person in PBA history to have won the Super Slam, winning all 5 PBA major titles in the same year. When you're on your world tours or wherever you are, do you get out and go do fun things? Do you plan it and say, I'm in Houston, what is there to do? And you just walk out and get out of the hotel room and go to a ball game, whether it's football or baseball or a museum?
I mean, I've been traveling the world since I was 16. And so been over 50 countries. And those first trips were like, wow, I'm going to Indonesia for the first time. I'm going to Turkey for the first time. I'm going to the US for the first time. And so there is this element of, well, while I'm there, I'd like to see a few things because I'm a kid. I've never seen these things before, or wherever you go. But when you have been traveling the world since you were 16, I've kind of gone everywhere, and I've gone everywhere a few times. And so outside of, there's a specific ball game that you want to catch with a couple of mates or whatever. I'm definitely not looking up on what to do in Houston on a Friday to go and catch a museum. I think I've done a lot of that. But if something very specific pops up, I don't know, sometimes even if there's a very interesting exhibit at a museum that's only in town, or it's only there for a period of time, and I happen to be able to catch it, I'll definitely try to go and check it out. But my off days, especially during the season, my off days are so valuable just to sleep and relax. And we might get into it, but a regular tour event is brutally hard to compete. It's long days, the exhaustion of the mind, of the body trying to perform at a very high level for such a long period of time over the course of 5 days. So those off days, you're not looking to go out into the Houston heat on a summer's day to go and check out, I don't know, the park. You kind of just wanting to close the blinds, turn on the TV, or stream something that you kind of want to just veg out to, so you can kind of just decompress. But to say that I haven't done that is a lie. I've done a lot of stuff as I was going to these places for the first time. Plus, when you're 17 years old, you can kind of live off, 4 hours sleep and a bunch of exciting and hardcore days. So now I'm 39. I want my sleep.
What was the first event that you traveled to outside of Australia? How old were you, and did your parents come with you as a chaperone?
No. The first event I ever went to was actually the event I realized I could become a professional bowler, and that I could make a living off the game. So I was 16, and I had four other mates from Australia who were a little older than I was. They were a few years older than I was, but they had organized this Singapore, Malaysia mini tour. And they had said, hey, listen, we're going to go over to these two countries to play two tournaments. Did you want to come along? And I was like, yeah, that like sounds pretty incredible. So I told the parents the plan. And they were like, yeah, okay, get yourself to Sydney, get on the plane, and away you go. And so they were really supportive. Mum and Dad have never really traveled a whole lot. Mum's come to maybe 2 events internationally in my career. Dad has come to 2 as well. They both came at the same time for one, and then in the other 2 times they came individually to 2 different tournaments. Their time is so, they've been so busy with their own business, especially early in my career, that getting them to come to a tournament is not only costly to leave Australia, but it's also like, yeah, they're leaving their business behind for a period of time, which is a bit tricky. So the parents just said at the time, look, we're really busy. If you want to go do this, good luck, and give us a call when you get there. And I happened to bowl really well. And I made a bunch of money. I bowled a perfect game in Malaysia, and that paid me, at the time, it was the equivalent of like 30,000 Australian dollars for bowling the perfect game. And as a 16-year-old, $30,000 in like literally none to 30,000 in like the span of one game. It was incredible. I was just like I'm rich. I can buy anything in the whole world. That's how I felt. And so I came home and I thought, well, if I can do that in Asia, why don't I just keep doing that? Why don't I keep coming back to Asia, keep bowling these tournaments and keep making, these big checks? So I quit my job at Blockbuster. I used to work there. And when I was started to travel a little more, my dad fired me from the bowl, our family business, because I was traveling too much. So he fired me. So then I was like, holy shit, like this bowling thing really needs to kind of pay off, because I don't have a job anymore to fall back on. And luckily for me, I worked really hard at some stuff. Actually, I haven't told too many people this part of the story, but after I won all that money, I actually reinvested it into my travel and thought, okay, now I've got a bunch of money. Mum and Dad, they weren't funding my tour escapades. So I was like, all right, I got a bunch of money. I started to plan my Asian tour and European tour kind of bowling experiences, and it was expensive. And I remember I'd lost all of it. I don't know how to describe it. It's okay. Supposedly, like, with a golf ball, depending on the altitude, the ball will fly differently, right? So imagine going to a high altitude golf course, unaware that being at a higher altitude, your ball flies further, right? And you just didn't know. And so you're hitting 100 yards out. So you're thinking, all right, it's a nice little, I don't know, soft pitch and wedge in or something like that. And it just flies over the green every single time. So in bowling, it was the same type of experience for me. The oil conditions, the lane patterns that we were bowling on were wildly different to what I'd experienced in Australia. And so this bank account was just getting drained because I was flying away. So I had enough money for one more trip. And I remember talking to my dad and I said, listen, I got money for one more trip, and then I don't think I can do this anymore. So I think I was kind of like, I don't know, poking him a little bit to say, is there a job for me when this one fails? Like, can I come back to work with you? Because I need money. And he said, listen, if things don't work out, of course you can come back to the business. So I said, okay, I got one more event in a month. And so I spent that entire month being a little bit more creative in my practice sessions and learning how to recreate that Asian zone oil pattern and the scenarios and really working on things that I was suffering with when I went to Asia. So I really worked hard in that month. And I went back to Singapore and ended up coming second in a major championship there I think I ended up winning like $40,000 or $50,000. And so, that kind of was I guess in my own head, it was like the catalyst of understanding you're not as good as you think you are, and that there is so much more for you to learn. And anytime that I experienced that type of I guess, yeah, you could say defeat or poor execution or just not having any clue what I was doing, it became this challenge of mine to see how quick I could learn it, how quick I could understand it, and, how quickly I could get back and win. And so, yeah, that last trip was a pretty significant trip, just because if I didn't do well, I don't know, maybe I would not be talking with you right now. I might seriously be back at the bowl, back home. Just doing that.
I hope you're enjoying this video so far, but before we jump back in, I want to know if you've ever thought about what you need to do to reach the next level of success in your life. Over the last 25 years, I've been an advisor to more than 50 companies. I've invested nearly 100, including Google, Lyft, and Seagate, and I also co-founded a company that today is worth more than $15 billion. I've been incredibly blessed in my journey, and at this stage in my life, I want to give back. I want to share the lessons I've learned so you can reach incredible success way faster than I did. In my own journey, I've learned that having the right mentor is a massive advantage to achieving our goals. I'm hugely passionate about mentoring others, and I'm looking for a few hungry entrepreneurs who are excited to take action on their journey to incredible future success. So if that's you, I've got an opportunity. In the description of this video, there's a link where you can apply to work with me. All you need to do is answer a few simple questions, and if you're a good fit, my team will reach out so we can build a game plan together. All right, now let's get back to the video.
Most people don't realize that the community bowl, the lanes are very different than on a professional bowl tournament. So you touched on it briefly, the slickness of the professional lanes. Is that harder or more difficult? And how do you prepare for, you talked about Malaysia and it's a different altitude. How do you prepare for something that's 500 feet or 5,000 feet at sea level versus something that is at sea level where the air is different? Do you get there weeks before, 5 days before, and say, okay, I need to acclimate my body to make sure have the same equilibrium as I do in a regular tournament?
No. So for me, through my career, it's all been time sensitive. It's how late can I actually leave Australia to get to this tournament, and how early can I get back home? Now, obviously, early into my career, it wasn't so dramatic about, leaving family, kids, wife, responsibilities. It was more about cost as a kid. It's like, all right, well, every day earlier I'm there, I'm in a hotel, and that costs X amount of dollars. And the tournament fees and the airline fees, and then all of the food and everything else that you're spending while you're there. So you're trying to mitigate that expenditure so you can come home with more profit. The only way that I've come to kind of realize how to recreate certain environments is you can never recreate exactly what it is, ever. But you can recreate the part of the lane in which you need to work on. So a lane is 39 boards wide, and they're about just under an inch. Each board is just under an inch wide. And so you look at this lane as your road, and there are parts of the road in which you just naturally feel really comfortable playing. And for the most part, most people like to play in the middle part of the lane, right? It's the furthest part away from the edges where the gutters are. And so most people get really comfortable playing in the middle. But there are some oil patterns and some bowling centers in which the middle of the lane is just not conducive to scoring well. You have to play closer to the gutter. And then your risk of throwing a gutter ball becomes a lot higher. And so you have to get very comfortable doing that. And so when you travel to different parts of the world and bowl in different oil patterns, you're essentially playing a different part of the road, a different part of the lane. And so you can come back home and say, wow, I'm really not comfortable playing this portion of the lane. I need to work on that. And so it feels comfortable that I don't have that hesitation that I'm going to throw the gutter ball at some point. So you can do that. You can build your game around the confidence on playing different parts of the lane. But there is zero, and I'm to this day, there is zero. There's nothing that can compare to experience and just living it, bowling on it, and then going back to that place and saying, oh, I remember you. I remember this play. I remember this oil pattern. Like, I remember what I did that didn't work the last time. And so you build these strategies over experience. And sometimes it can be really challenging because, you know, it's a puzzle that we're trying to solve. You know, it's like, where do I stand? What do I target at? How fast do I want to throw the ball? How much rotation do I want to put on it? What bowling ball do I want to choose to use? When do I change that bowling ball in the middle of a tournament? And so you're putting together this puzzle, and you've got these strategies and ideas, and then they don't work. So then you go back the next time and you're like, all right, chuck all that out. You create these new ones. That doesn't work. It can get really frustrating because you're like, there is a solve to this puzzle. The reason I know there's a solve is someone wins and someone bowls really well. And so it's like, they figured it out. Why haven't you figured it out? And that's where, for me, the frustration gets to is I hate not knowing what I'm doing that isn't successful. And so that it almost becomes exciting for me to figure it out. It's like, oh my God, that light bulb moment comes on, and then you get to implement that new strategy that you've kind of come up with, and it works, and then you win. And then there's a very satisfying moment where people watching on TV, they see you win the championship, and there's this like, oh, well done, he did really great. But in your own mind, you're like, this was a long road. This was 5 years of me coming to this part of the world or this bowling center, and I've really struggled, or I haven't won, and I haven't been able to figure it out, and now I have. And so for me, that satisfaction moment is like amplified, because it's not just this week that I've done well. It's the fact that I've been able to overcome a series of attempts in which I haven't done well. And probably for me, the most obvious one of that is my time in Japan. The bowling centers there are a little bit older. And so we have a type of wood on the lane that's a little older as well. And so every time I would go to Japan, I would really struggle. And it was like a 12-year beat your head against the wall type of experience. Like every year for 12 years, coming with these high expectations, new strategies, thinking everything's going to be great. And it just kept kicking me down. And it was getting to the point where my competitors were saying, it's like the only place he can't win. Like, we should go to Japan more often. Like, we got to go there more often. And everywhere else he beats us. And so that alone, the fact that they had this one place hanging over my head, it bothered me. And so I was like, well, there's got to be another way to do this. And so I ended up being incredibly creative and doing something that I would not normally ever really do. The ball choice that I used, my hand position that I used, the speed that I used, it felt super uncomfortable because it was really different to how I like to normally play the game. But it worked. And then I won. And that was a really satisfying moment.
This episode of In Search of Excellence is brought to you by Sandee.com, SANDEE.com. We're a Yelp for beaches and have created the world's most comprehensive beach resource by cataloging more than 100 categories of information for every beach in the world, more than 100,000 beaches in 212 countries. Sandee.com provides beachgoers around the world with detailed, comprehensive, and easy-to-use information to help them plan their perfect beach getaway at home and abroad, and to make sure you're never disappointed by a beach visit again. Plan the perfect beach trip today by visiting Sandee.com. That's www.sandee.com. The link is in our show notes. Stay Sandee, my friends.
In American U.S. football, which is the most popular sport in the U.S., there is a standard football. It's the same size. It's pumped up to the same air pressure. In baseball, there's one ball. And in football also, there's natural grass and then what we call fake turf. And they used to play on a very thin turf where people would really get hurt because there was no cushion when people would fall. Is all the wood the same in a professional bowling tour, what is the wood? Is there one particular wood? And as well, you mentioned you can change your ball. Are there various bowling balls? Are there rules in terms of the pound? It's one size, but what are the limitations on the ball? What's the variance, and what ball do you use, or do you change up your ball for each tournament depending on some of the factors you just mentioned?
Yeah, really good question. So we'll touch on the first one first. Every bowling center I've ever been in has been different. Over the course of the game's evolution, we have developed new lane surfaces. So the original versions are, if you can imagine, the old wood lanes where it was a type of wood. It's probably the most true sound a ball can make going down the lane. Like, it's that real deep kind of rolling on the wood. It's a beautiful sound. But the problem with wood lanes is, wood is a material that can damage. You've got these heavy bowling balls that crash onto the lane, causing dinting, splitting. And so the maintenance of a wood lane was often, and it was expensive, and it was annoying. And so the industry developed a synthetic lane, a lane that was made of this incredibly durable and tough plastic. They made it look like wood lanes as best as they could, but the synthetic lane had a lot of differences to the wood lane. When you put oil on a wood lane, especially an older surface wood lane, there would be cracks that would open up in the lane. I've bowled on some lanes in some parts of the world where there are actual potholes. There's holes in the lanes. And so you're trying to navigate through those holes in the lanes as well. Where synthetic, you never get that. You don't get the hole in the lane. You don't get the board splitting open. And so it made for a more consistently smooth surface. And from the proprietor's perspective, you didn't have to maintain them like you did with wood lanes. You didn't have to have the fear that a bowling ball is going to dint them or crack them open or whatever. And so it was a huge advancement into the lane surface. But as soon as you put down a plastic lane instead of a traditional wood lane, the way the oil sits on top of that lane and the way that correlates with the ball going down it changes the ball motion dramatically. And so now bowlers had to learn how to bowl on synthetic and wood. And that was an interesting time, I think, for a lot of players who had, been so great on traditional wood lanes and now having to redefine their game a little bit to play on a synthetic lane. So that was that advancement. With bowling balls, it is very similar to golf. Very, very similar. There are so many similarities. It's pretty wild. But we have bowling balls that are designed to do specific things. As a golf club is designed in a golfer's bag, a sand wedge is great for the sand or when you need to chip it high and short distances. And then your driver is meant to go just straight and long as far as it can. We have bowling balls that are designed to hook a lot. Some don't hook at all. Some hook early, some hook late, some are shiny, some are dull. And I can't say there's an infinite amount of combinations because obviously there's not, but there is a lot of combinations to a bowling ball. So choosing your arsenal, choosing your equipment has become incredibly important in today's game. Back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we didn't have that evolution in technology in the bowling ball. Most people carried one bowling ball. This was it. This was my one, and this is what everyone used. And so the game was very simple. Then when technology gets involved, it complicates it a little bit. And when you complicate it a little bit, it means you've got to be a little smarter. You have to learn that part of the game. Why do I use ball A instead of ball B? And at any given time on the Pro Tour, I'll have maybe 20 bowling balls for me to be ready to use, sometimes more. And that can also be really overwhelming because you're looking at 20 bowling balls on the ground going, well, which is the one that I want to use right now? And the winner of the tournament is going to choose the right one for him or her. So you have to get it right. And it's pretty daunting, especially when you throw it and it's wrong. You're like, crap, that didn't work. Now I've got to make that up somewhere. I have to choose the right ball, but not only do I have to choose the right ball, now I have to execute at an even higher percentage for the rest of the day because I started using the wrong ball. And that's a really tricky part of the game.
But is there a specific weight that a ball has to be? And is the composite of the ball the same? In baseball, you need to have a wood bat, because if you have a metal bat, you're going to have 20 home runs per game. And when you're using the wrong ball during a game, can you change your ball during the middle of the game, or are you stuck with that ball for the rest of the game?
Yeah, I was going to answer those two questions, but I forgot them after I did my rant. So I'm glad you brought them back. You brought them back up. So a bowling ball cannot weigh any more than 16 pounds. That's the most that a bowling ball can weigh. As technology has evolved, you actually don't want to use the 16-pound bowling balls. Most of in the high 90% of competitors on tour are using 15 pounds. So you drop that extra pound because you're looking for just a little bit of deflection to create better pin action. Inside the bowling ball, though, and even the surface of the bowling ball, what that material is made of, does vary. We have a weight block inside. That weight block is either symmetrical or asymmetrical. And the reason why these designs of a weight block are created is to generate a type of ball motion. You know, if you want a bowling ball to hook a lot, then you need this weight block on the inside to be able to pull the ball a certain way. Again, think of it like a golf ball, and that if if Titleist is looking for extra spin, it's investing in its R&D on, right, how do I get a golf ball to spin more? Or how do I get it to fly further into the air? What are the air dynamics of the dimples on the ball? What do I got to do to make this ball go that little bit further on the course? And bowling is no different. It's how do we get a bowling ball to strike more? But how do I get a bowling ball that hooks a lot to strike more? How do I get a bowling ball that hooks a little bit, strike more? And so the technology in that it blows your mind. But it also becomes very overwhelming when you're a competitor, because now you're trying to understand what it all means. Because like a golfer, using the wrong club at the wrong time can be incredibly detrimental to your entire tournament. It's the same with bowling. If I'm using the wrong ball, I'm just not going to win. It doesn't matter how well I execute. If it's the wrong ball for the oil pattern and the part of the lane that I'm trying to play, I'm just not going to get the maximum amount of strikes that someone with the right ball playing the right part of the lane is going to get. And so, you typically you have to work with your sponsors on understanding those technological advancements better, so you can choose the right ball at the right times. And it's complicated.
Let's go back to the very beginning of your life. When you were 18 months old, your mom, Marissa, and dad, Aldo, bought a bowling alley called the Orange 10 Pin Bowl. You were a toddler. You're still in diapers. You're still having poopies every now and then. And at some point, you picked up a ball, and you couldn't roll it with one hand because it's clearly too heavy. Can you tell us about a technique you learned at that age because you had to learn it, and how you did something different than almost every bowler before you had done? And what was that like?
Yeah, well, Mum and Dad actually built the bowling center a couple of weeks after I was born. It was this business idea that was born from a question when family from Sydney came to this small little country town called Orange. It was pouring down rain, and someone had said, "Hey, there's nothing to do. It's raining. Let's go bowling." And my parents were like, "Oh, we don't have a place here to do that." And so the very next day they said, why don't we build one? You know, the town would use it, and it sounds like, you know, our family really enjoy it. And so the very next day they started researching what the game was and how much to invest in it, and they decided to do it, which was incredibly brave because they knew nothing about the game, never bowled a ball in their life, and yet they invested all of their money. They asked my dad's parents to invest all of their money to go into this business that they knew nothing about. And so looking back, the fact they knew nothing about the game was a blessing in disguise for me, because that meant they weren't coaches. They weren't bowlers. They didn't know the correct or traditional way of playing the game. They just, it was business to them. And so the earliest photo we have of me bowling is when I was 18 months old, and my mother would tell me that I was very stubborn. I had to do it by myself. No one was allowed to help me. I got to pick the ball up, and just as you alluded to before, it was just too heavy to bowl traditionally, like everybody else who was older than me. And so I would hold this ball with two hands and waddle to the foul line and throw it out into the lane, and then turn around and do it all day long, every day, while my parents worked. And then as I was getting older, the ball was still a little too heavy for me to throw it with the traditional style, but I could do it a little better my way. Like, I could actually create a bit more speed now. And the one thing that I could do as a little boy that no one else in this small town of bowlers could do was I could hook the ball. Everyone else bowled super straight, and I was hooking the ball. And to me, that was the coolest thing in the world. It made me different, and I loved it. And so nothing was going to stop me from doing that. As you get a little bit older, and now you're strong enough to hold the ball with one hand, and you've got, boys and girls your own age who are traditionally bowling, and you get older kids who are bowling. That's kind of when it started with the pressures, I guess, and I really don't understand why, but the pressure of it's time to conform. It's time to change what you have been doing and bowl like everybody else. And I just wouldn't do it. For two main reasons. I loved the way that I did it, but more importantly, I would look at the scoreboards and I would be beating everybody. And so I couldn't understand why I would change. And that mentality of if I'm enjoying it and it's serving me well, why am I conforming to what everybody else is doing? And that's kind of how I've lived my life really since then in every aspect. But I just had this ability to do something a little bit different, and that little bit different gave me an advantage. It gave me more strikes. It gave me more hook. It allowed me to do things to a bowling ball that no one else in my town could do, which again, that's the advantage that I had. And winning against kids that were 5, 6, 7 years older than I was as a 10-year-old, or as a 13-year-old, beating all the adults in town. It made no sense to me why I would ever change. And luckily I didn't, because it served me well through my career.
Tell us about Norm Duke and the Beast.
Norm Duke. He is a Hall of Famer. One of my favorite bowlers of all time. Probably consider him an idol of mine. I saw Norm Duke bowl for the very first time on a VHS tape. VCR, sorry, not VHS. Is it VHS? No, it's VCR. VCR. That's how old it is. I can't even remember the 3 letters the tapes were called. That VCR tape was actually sent to us by 2 Americans that came to live in my small town. The husband was in the mining industry, and we had a gold mine outside of where I lived. And so he would tell us all about the PBA tour. And we had never heard of it before. There was no internet. We didn't have it on TV. And so I'm listening to him tell these stories of all of these bowlers. And, anytime the name Norm Duke was mentioned, it seemed to be a really engaging story. And so they went back home to the US, and they would periodically send these tapes over from the PBA tour that they had recorded and allowed us to view. And so we ended up having, we had to buy a new VCR player, because the versions of the US and Australia were slightly different. So we had to buy an American VCR player. And then we put the first tape in, and the very first show that was on there was Norm Duke. and he was using this bowling ball called the Beast. It was this purple ball with pink writing, and he was just hooking the whole lane with this purple Beast. And my eyes, as I think I was like 13 or 14 at the time, like my eyes were just glued to Norm. And he won the tournament using this ball. And I remember just turning to my parents saying, I need a Beast. If there's anything that I can do for you to make me get this Beast, I will do it, whatever it is. And I think it was for Christmas that year. Under the tree was a Beast. And so the funny part of all of this is when I went to go bowl on tour, Norm was still competing. And it was incredibly surreal for me to be competing next to my idol, to be competing next to someone who I saw a glimpse of on a tape in Australia for the first time years ago. And I remember telling him that story. He actually beat me in the competition, and I shook his hand and I said, it's actually, for some reason, I don't feel so bad today losing to you. Let me tell you why. And I told him the story. And, Norm he's such a beautiful human being. He had a tear in his eye and he gave me a big hug, and he told me how much of an honor it was to have that story related to him. And, we've been very good friends ever since. And he's now retired, which is sad because I miss seeing him compete. But I'm happy he's retired because he was so bloody good. It's nice not have to try to beat the guy anymore.
When I was younger, 5, 6, 7, actually it wasn't 5 or 6. When I was younger, 10 to 12, maybe 13, I liked to bowl. There were a few bowling leagues in Detroit, suburbs of Detroit, where I was from. And I wasn't very good, but bowling was on TV from time to time. And Earl Anthony was the best bowler in the world at that time. And I remember while I was in this league, just watching him on TV, and he would spin the ball. He was a right-hander. The right leg would kick out beneath his left leg. And I remember that ball just spinning 180 and just cranking through these pins. And I thought, wow, that's super cool. And what I thought back in the time, I said, what are all these funny shirts people are wearing? These are kind of nerdy and they're very different. And we had our own shirts in that league as well. And these are really kind of thin shirts. They're not what I would call a sports shirt. And the interesting thing about the shirts is they became a fashion trend, and people are now buying expensive bowling shirts at some of the finest, cool clothing stores in the world.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of those trends through what bowling was. In fact, that there was a period of time where even bowling shoes were inspired in lines of shoes, to the point where where I live in this small little town, right? So you kind of get that feeling like you almost know everyone. And a few times, I'd go to the pub and I'd look around and I would see my bowling center shoes. They stole them. Like, people would go bowling and not bring the shoes back just to wear them to the pub. And, I'd see them and I'd be like, Dave, bring my shoes back to the bowl. Like, don't steal my shoes and wear them to the pub. So there was like some pretty funny times in which the fashion of bowling has definitely come in and out. And you're right, like the concept of that kind of retro bowling outfit is definitely making its way back again. It's weird. I mean, bowling is probably one of the hardest things we've been trying to do in bowling, is to break the stereotype of what a bowler is. That idea of the 70s and 80s burger eating, beer drinking type of athlete, that doesn't exist anymore. When I go out and play on tour, it's a very young tour. It's a very fit tour, and you have to be. The way that the tournaments are played now, it's brutally taxing on your body. And I think what we have seen in this generation of pro bowlers is we've looked to the past and we've seen careers cut short due to that stereotype, that heavier set gentleman, that that bowler that just didn't think about stretching even, right? As simple as stretching. They just wouldn't even do that. It was just a very different time to be alive. And so the tour today is just not that at all. And when I do meet people and they say, "Oh, do you get to have a beer in between frames?" And I'm like, no, it's against our rules to start with. But no, it's very fit, our tour. You have to be. And so you try to educate that, but that stereotype, that Homer Simpson, even the Fred Flintstone type stereotype is so difficult to break because it has been ingrained into the culture of bowling for so long. Now, don't get me wrong. If you and I want to go and have a casual roll on a Friday night with our mates, yeah, get the burgers going and get the beer flowing. But on the pro tour, it is very, very different.
Are you looking for your next great gift to surprise a friend, colleague, or loved one? Bliss Beaches makes the perfect gift. This best-selling Bright and Beautiful coffee table book by Randall Kaplan features stunning drone photography from exotic beach locations around the world. It's the perfect housewarming gift, a great addition to any home or office, and a fun and creative alternative to bringing a bottle of wine to somebody's house for dinner. Bliss Beaches is available for purchase on Amazon, where it has glowing reviews and a 5-star rating. Get your next amazing gift and order a copy of Bliss Beaches by clicking the link in our show notes.
We're to get back to the physical demands of the pro tours and professional bowling, which I think most people do not know what that's like. But let's go back to when you were a kid and what were you like? You played rugby, you tried a whole bunch of different sports. And at some point you said to yourself, all right, I can't play rugby because I'm going to get hurt or I could get hurt. And you realized you were a good bowler. So take us through that as a kid. And was there some moment in your life where you said to yourself, I think I can do this professionally? And as part of that, talk about what you did, where you worked, and how your dad fired you one day.
Yeah. So growing up, Australian culture is very sport orientated, and I love my sport. I just love it. If I can catch it, throw it, kick it, hit it, I enjoy doing it. And so growing up, bowling was something that I did because my parents owned the bowling center and I loved it. But outside of the bowling center, there was rugby and cricket and soccer and squash and tennis. There was a lot of different games that I was playing, and I ended up becoming quite good at rugby and quite good at cricket. And so those two sports, along with bowling, were always the three sports kind of jockeying for position on what I wanted to do that day. And so as I was getting older, there was a realization that I was really good at all three, but I was not great at any one. And if I was going to become great at any one, the time that I would have to dedicate it to it would mean that I would have to give up something to do that. And I didn't really know which one it was going to be. I really didn't. I think I had the ability to do all three at a very high level if I dedicated myself to it. So it wasn't until I was 16 and I traveled to Malaysia for the very first time. It was my first overseas trip as a bowler. And I bowled a perfect game in Malaysia, and I won the equivalent at the time. I think it was 30,000 Australian dollars. And so I became overnight rich in my mind. Like, I felt like I could have bought a Ferrari with $30,000. That's how rich I felt. And I came home, and that was this realization of, wow, I've got so much money because of bowling, like rugby and cricket or any other game that I wanted to play. I didn't see that. I didn't see at that time, at that age, that I could make that kind of money. And so I decided to focus on my bowling career. Furthermore, as you said, like, if you dedicate yourself to one, but you still want to do the other ones, like, rugby is a pretty dangerous game. And so if I was gonna really become as good as I could be as a bowler, it's like, well, you also have to factor in the idea of, getting hit in the head a few times, or something like that. And that's something that I didn't want to have to deal with. So I just canceled everything else, focused on my bowling. After that trip as well, I actually had two jobs. I had two working jobs. I used to work for Blockbuster, which younger listeners may not remember either. It was the original place, or one of the original places to watch movies, where you would hire and rent a movie, a hard physical tape or a disc. And I used to work for my dad at the bowling center. And so I came home $30,000 richer, quit my job at Blockbuster, thought, don't need that anymore, I'm rich. And then it wasn't that much longer that all of my international traveling was causing stress on the family business, because I was missing those shifts. I'm supposed to be working there, and mum and dad had to cover my shifts. And so I came into work one day, and my dad called me into the office, and he always used to call me into the office, and we would talk nonsense, or we'd talk business, or we'd talk something. But he would never close the door. The door would always be open to the office until this one fateful morning I walked into the office and he said, "Can you close the door behind you?" I was like, oh, this is no good. He's never wanted to close the door before. And so he sat me down and he said how proud he was of me trying to compete as a bowler and doing all this travel, but he's going to have to let me go. He goes, "I'm going to have to let you go, son. You're killing me. You're killing me with all this time you're taking away. I got to do your shifts. Mum's got to do your shifts. We're already working a lot. We need to hire somebody that can fill those shoes. And so you're done." And it was the weirdest, because I had to see him for lunch. Like I had lunch with him as well. So he fired me, and Mum's like, "Oh, how'd it go today?" I'm like, "Well, Dad fired me." "How do you think it went?" And it was quite a funny moment looking back at it. But I was annoyed because working at the bowl was part of how I was funding my international career. And early on in my international career, I was really struggling. Bowling in different parts of the world, different oil patterns, different lane surfaces. I had no experience. And so working for me was a way that I can continue to fund it. And when that was cut off, it meant, if anything, now that I think about it and look back, it was like you're jumping into the deep, and it was like you cut the rope, the safety net, it's gone. You have to make this successful or you can't do it anymore. And so I think I really kind of went up a gear or two in my preparation for these tournaments overseas, and it paid off because it worked. That preparation made me a better player.
Most of us remember our first paycheck that we got in life. I, at 16 years old, had a summer cold calling job where I sat in front of a phone book and I dialed for a company called Mural Stone Construction Company. And I would say, "Hi, I'm Randy Kaplan from Mural Stone Construction. Do you need home improvements like aluminum siding, new concrete work, et cetera, et cetera?" And I remember I got one sale that entire summer, and I think I made something like $800, which was all the money in the world for me. You win this tournament, you get around $30,000. Tell us how you invested that money and what it was there for. And you got to talk about your Jordans that you bought as well, and what exact model and color they were when you're 16 years old and buying those cool kicks.
Well, the very first thing I remember buying was a mobile phone. That was the very first thing that I bought. And taking that phone to school was the ultimate flex. He has his own phone. Like they were really expensive back in the day. It was a Nokia 5110 was the actual model of the phone. And if you Google what a Nokia 5110 looks like,
it's a brick.
They were big. Yeah, they were a brick, and they were tough. You could throw it like a brick and it wouldn't break. They were really tough back then. It had this little screen, but you could play a couple of games on them that I thought were revolutionary. And so that was the very first thing that I remember buying. And it also allowed me the freedom to just the little things, kind of, I don't know, the flex of the money was, your friend wanted a drink at the cafeteria, and you're like, "Yeah, I got it for you, mate. I got that. Yeah, let me give you $1. I got that, and you soon realize some of these people may not actually care about you. They want that drink or something. So you kind of started to pull back a little bit pretty quickly on that. But the real investment of that money was into my own career, was that became a travel fund. for me. Looking at tournaments through Asia and through Europe, I knew that, well, the arrogance of me was I did it the first time I ever traveled overseas. So in my head, it was, well, every single time you're going to travel now, you're going to bring home $30,000 every single time. And it just wasn't like that. It was quite the opposite. I started traveling to new places, different places. The oil patterns were different. The lane surfaces were different. I had no idea what I was doing. I was not making money. I was losing all of my money. I was losing the expense to get there, the entry fees, the hotels, the food, any tourist stuff that I wanted to do as a kid when I'm over there. And these trips started to become super, super expensive. And I wasn't generating income. And I remember thinking, like, what's going on? Like, I've nearly run out of money. And I looked at my bank account. I had enough for one last trip. And I remember talking to my dad. I think I was kind of hoping, I was alluding to the idea of me coming back to work if my final trip didn't do so well. And, Dad, really kindly said, look, of course, if you need a job when you get back from this one, there's always going to be one here for you. And when I had that conversation with him to the time of the tournament, it was about a month in between. And so I thought, right, I have a month before I spend the last of my money. What do I need to do to be great? And I started to, for the very first time, become incredibly analytical of my game, rather than emotional, rather than just complaining that I didn't do well. I started really asking the question, why? And when I was honest with myself, I came up with a few answers, and I'm like, yeah, you're really not good at that. Maybe you need to check your ego a little bit, leave the arrogance at the door, be okay with the idea that you're not great at this, and become great at it. And so I spent that month doing what I thought was the right thing. And when I went back to the next tournament after spending all of that money, I ended up coming second in the tournament. And I think it was for maybe $50,000. And so that was the true catalyst of understanding what it's going to take, how difficult it really was, but that I had that ability to overcome, the worst of the worst experiences to still figure it all out. And I'm forever grateful for being on my last trip, that last dime, and pouring everything I had into it for a month before going, and then having that success as the reward. That's how I've gone into my career from that day forth. Is anytime I've failed, I've taken a very analytical approach as to why, and worked incredibly hard on fixing it. And it's done me really well over my career. G'day, I'm Jason Belmonte, and I was on In Search of Excellence, hosted by Randall Kaplan. And in my experience of doing podcasts, it's always very critical when the host, knows what they're talking about. And I thought Randall did a great job in researching my career as a 10-pin bowler. And so the conversation felt very natural. I didn't feel like I was trying to educate someone who had never heard of me or heard of the game that I'm involved in. So very much a fan of Randall and his work, and definitely knows what he's doing.
I hope you're enjoying this video so far, but before we jump back in, I want to know if you've ever thought about what you need to do to reach the next level of success in your life. Over the last 25 years, I've been an advisor to more than 50 companies. I've invested nearly 100, including Google, Lyft, and Seagate. And I also co-founded a company that today is worth more than $15 billion. I've been incredibly blessed in my journey, and at this stage in my life, I want to give back. I want to share the lessons I've learned so you can reach incredible success way faster than I did. In my own journey, I've learned that having the right mentor is a massive advantage to achieving our goals. I'm hugely passionate about mentoring others, and I'm looking for a few hungry entrepreneurs who are excited to take action on their journey to incredible future success. So if that's you, I've got an opportunity. In the description of this video, there's a link where you can apply to work with me. All you need to do is answer a few simple questions, and if you're a good fit, my team will reach out so we can build a game plan together. All right, now let's get back to the video.
The first tournament, 2008, you finished 60th out of 63 contenders. Talk to us about the mental state of mind you were in when you said, oh, geez, this is not so great, the first tournament. Were you dejected, or did it even make you more motivated to come back and say, I got to do better and I am going to do better, and I want to be the best in the sport?
Yeah, I think the very first feeling I had when I bowled my very first pro event was I wanted to know like the baseline, like where am I at? These are the best bowlers in the world, the Norm Dukes of the world, and I wanted to know where I was at. And so that first tournament, I was shown pretty quickly where I was at. It was like, okay, that was a little ego hitting, and that was a little hard to handle because I think I thought I was better. I thought I was closer to the top than I was to the bottom. I didn't think I was going to be near the top. I just thought I would be better than half of them, and I really wasn't. But I fell back into that idea of, well, what happened? Because this was a new environment. This was a new oil pattern. These were new bowlers that I was competing against. And so there was a learning curve. There was an experience that I had to eat up to become better. So I also took it with a bit of a grain of salt that first week. It was like, all right, you know where you are now, but it was your first week. Like you're going to have to learn a few of these PBA Tour tricks, and that's not going to be, it's not going to be easy. So I think week 2 I finished 58th, I think, out of 64. So I improved a little bit. That was a positive, but still, really far behind. And I really watched. I watched the best players in the world, and I watched what they were doing with the bowling balls and what they were trying to accomplish with ball shape and ball motion and what bowling balls they were using. And I tried to translate that into my game as quickly as possible. And fortunately for me, in my 8th event, I put the puzzle together and was able to win in my rookie year in my 8th event. And that was a turning point in my career. That was like when I felt like I belonged on this stage. Previous to the Pro Tour, I was a really, really great amateur player, very successful, but it's the big fish in the little pond analogy, right? And I wanted to be the big fish in the ocean. And so that's when I realized I could do it. I could actually do this. I beat them all, in my 8th event. Like maybe I can. This is what I can really do. I can really win out here.
So many athletes at a young age get recognized, and as part of that recognition, when somebody knows they're going to be a prodigy or they get contracts. You look at LeBron James when he was 18 years old. He signed a reported $80 million with Nike. Ryan Sheckler, one of the best skateboarders of all time, had a pro contract when he was 13 years old. Tell us about Tim Mack and your first contract with Storm Bowling, and how much were you getting paid?
Yeah, so Tim was an American amateur player, but the best amateur player in the world. He came to Australia for a tournament, and it was a tournament that I was also invited to. And so Timmy, as I affectionately call him, watched me bowl for the very first time, this unique two-handed delivery, and it really blew him away. It was weird to see, but kind of cool. And the fact that I could do it really well, I think excited him. So he made the call to his sponsor, which was Storm Bowling. And he spoke to the owner of the company and expressed, listen, you got to see this kid bowl. This kid does it in a way that we've never seen before. He's very good at it. I think he's someone that we should sponsor. And it wasn't too much longer, maybe a year or two after that conversation that Timmy had after seeing me compete in Australia, that I got a call from the owner of the company, Bill Chrisman. And he said, listen, you're a kid. I get it. You bowl a little different. Haven't seen it myself, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. So I want to invite you to America, and I want you to bowl in a tournament that I sponsor. And I want to bring you over for it. And I want you to kind of do your thing. So I said, that would be amazing. So flew to Las Vegas for this tournament. And I met Bill Chrisman. I bowled in front of him. And as soon as I was done bowling, he put his arm around me and he said, I've never seen anything like this before. You're incredible. And I want you to represent my company. And so later that night, I think I had this very base. I mean, I didn't have an agent. didn't even really know about contracts. All I knew is I was about to be signed by the best bowling company in the world. That, to me, I would have done it for free. I nearly did. It was basically free. I think I got paid like maybe $1,000 a month to represent Storm, and I got my equipment for free. And it really wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that I was now a part of this team, that I had access to resources, and it was an incredible moment because I wasn't expecting it. But that was in 1999. I think I signed that contract with Storm. Maybe no. The first contract, was an amateur contract that I signed with Bill. I think it was 2001. That's the first year that I signed with them. And so that $1,000 contract lasted a year or two, and then my performances would allow me bonuses, and I was able to escalate my way up through the ranks. And every year, every time I did well, like Bill Crispin and Storm, like they never once, it was never an argument. It was like, hey, you did really well. You deserve a raise. Hey, you did really well this year. You deserve another raise. And I keep asking every year, hey, I did really well. Do I get another raise? And Mr. Chrisman continues to say, yeah, you deserve it. So they've been an incredible partner of mine. And yeah, I really do believe that a lot of my success is due to the fact that I'm using the best equipment. They are the best bowling balls in the world, which allow me to strike more than I would normally would using anyone else's. And so I'm incredibly grateful and in debt for them to helping me have the career that I've had.
And all the coaching that I've done over the years, one of the things that I say to people is, if you don't ask, then you don't get. And when you were young, as part of this sponsorship, you need to get a tour exemption. And instead of asking for one exemption, you ask for two. What's your advice to all those people out there today who are afraid to even ask the first question for something that they want to get or want to do? And how do we inspire them to get up and actually have the courage to do it?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say is you have to be okay with the response back to you of no. Like, you have to be okay that you're going to hear it. You might ask for too much, whatever it might be. You might ask for something that's unreasonable, but you're going to hear no. And so if you can handle the idea of them saying no to you, then asking becomes way easier. The fear of rejection, the fear of upsetting somebody, if you ask, you have to be able to let it go and be like, okay, there are good and bad ways for asking for something. I'm going to learn the better ways to ask for something where it doesn't sound rude or arrogant or annoying, but I'm going to be okay if they say no. And then the next thing is you have to give them a reason to not say no. That whatever you're asking for, show value in what you're asking. Have it on the table ready to go and say, this is what I'm worth, but this is why I'm worth what I'm worth. And if the choice comes down to a yes or no based on purely financials, well, in my career, I tried to always illustrate, if you're going to invest this much in me, this is how I'm going to return that investment back in profits for you. I want to do these appearances. I want to do marketing campaigns. I want to perform well and win tournaments. I want to be a part of research and development. Like you give all of these lists as to what their money is getting them. And then perhaps they add to that list with other obligations. And then you have to decide if it's the right thing for you to do. But those are the two things that I've really learned is you've got to be okay with them saying no, but you've also got to give them a reason not to say no. Like, make it clear, this is what you're worth.
I've had some incredible guests on my show, and one of them was someone named Sam Zell, who is one of the greatest real estate investors of all time. He created something known as the modern REIT. He was a member of the Forest for 100, and unfortunately, he passed away a few months ago. But he was investing in real estate in a way that nobody else was doing before him. And he said to me, and he's talked about this a lot, is he felt like he was doing something that nobody else was doing. When people were going left, he found himself going right, and he was the only one doing it. And he talked about the loneliness of doing that. And he wasn't fearful. He was confident in that what he was doing, but he couldn't understand why no one else was doing it. In your career, the two-handed bowling was something that no one else was really doing with success. I think there were one or two people before you, but you changed the nature of the sport. And when you start winning, funny things happen. People are jealous, they get angry, and it became very controversial because you were the only one with success on the pro tournament circuit who was winning, and you were called a cheat. And talk to us about what that was like, being called a cheater in a professional league when you're winning, and talk about your feeling of loneliness and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, it's kind of been something that I've had to deal with at different stages in my career. But probably the most painful one was when you're on tour, because now you're on a much larger platform. And by this point in my career, we had social media, we had the internet. And so the sound of that hate was so loud. It was so deafening to me because I would read it and I would hear it. And I took it all very, very personally. And so that affected me and my mental health a lot. The hardest part about it all was when you're referenced as a cheat, but you're not actually breaking any rules. That was the hardest thing. Like I couldn't understand why they used that word. They could have said any other word about how I bowled, that I'm whatever they wanted to say. But to say that you cheat means that you are navigating the course beyond the boundaries that everybody else is stuck in. And I wasn't. I stayed within the lines. The amount of people that went through rule books trying to find clauses or a word or a phrase that would ban me, no one ever found it. It didn't exist. And that was because I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just I found a different way to throw a ball down the lane. And so I spent a lot of my early rookie seasons defending myself. And I'm pouring a lot of energy, constantly replying back to haters. This is, no, you're calling me a cheat, but I don't break any of the rules. I'm just constantly on this defense about, what it is that I'm doing. And it drained me and I was sad. And it was like, well, I'm not enjoying this. This is not a good time. And so then you look to your friends and your competitors because you're like, well, they'll get it. Like they're doing what I'm doing. So they understand the trials and tribulations of what it's like out here on tour. And it was just as lonely because then I started to have success on the pro tour and I was taking money out of their pockets that they were trying to provide for their family. And I was becoming more famous than they were. And there was a jealousy aspect of it all. And so not only are you a little different, I'm also foreign born. I'm not from the US. And so I didn't have an entourage of people surrounded by me while I was on tour from people from home. When a tournament would end, we would have a day or two between the start of the next tournament. I didn't have the luxury of going home to see my family like my competitors did. They got to go home and see their family and their friends. And so you're on the road constantly. You're not getting a lot of feedback that felt positive from the community of bowling because you're a little different. And bowling is an old game. It's a traditional game. And you will beating your competitors, so they weren't really enjoying you out there either. It was hard. It was really, really hard. And it took a change of perspective to, I guess, unshackle that part of my career. The wanting to please everybody was something that I had to let go of. And it's just human nature. You could cure cancer tomorrow and there will still be someone that says, you cured the wrong cancer. Why did you cure that cancer? It's like, it doesn't matter what you do. Everyone isn't going to love you. There will always be people that just, they don't like you. And once I realized that, the focus went from, why am I paying attention to these haters when I'm noticing there are some fans? Like, there are people that are supporting me and that are saying nice things. You know what I'm going to do? Instead of replying back to the people who are not in my corner, I'm going to start replying back and engaging with those that are. And like, overnight, you feel this confidence and the love, like you feel it, because now you're focusing on these people who are saying I'm amazing and that I'm inspiring them to be bowlers and that they love to watch me compete because what I'm doing is crazy to watch and it's so much fun. And then you start to enjoy it. Then you start to say, you know what, well, I'm going to do this better for them. You know, I'm going to do this better for me. I'm going to do this better for my family, but I'm going to do this better for the people who are enjoying this from the community of bowling. And that I was so much happier at the end of a day. You know, you write a post, you go through, you filter through the ones that aren't so great and you focus on the ones that do. And then all of a sudden now you almost had a group of people that was willing to defend you as well. And so then I felt like I had more support, that when someone said, hey, you're a cheater, well, before I even would see the comment, I would open it and it would be 50 to 100 people defending me saying, what are you talking about? You know, crazy man, like just because he does it a little differently. And that was when I realized that it's so important to see what your focuses are on. What are you really looking at and what are you really hearing? And there's a difference between hate and constructive criticism, right? Like when you hear that you could do something better, I would never label that as, oh, they just hate, they're haters, you know. But true haters, you can tell, you can see them from a mile away. And so you have to be able to not make that a focal point. Made my life a lot happier.
This episode of In Search of Excellence is brought to you by Sandee.com, SANDEE.com. We're a Yelp for beaches and have created the world's most comprehensive beach resource by cataloging more than 100 categories of information for every beach in the world, more than 100,000 beaches in 212 countries. Sandee.com provides beachgoers around the world with detailed, comprehensive, and easy-to-use information to help them plan their perfect beach getaway at home and abroad, and to make sure you're never disappointed by a beach visit again. Plan the perfect beach trip today by visiting Sandee.com. That's www.sandee.com. The link is in our show notes. Stay sandy, my friends.
Many of us have a lot of haters in our life. And I think the great advice there is cut out the haters of your life because they're a cancer to your mental well-being. And it's better to surround yourself with people who are supportive, who love you, and really want the best for you.
Yeah, and I also realized that we live in a day of social media where a number of followers has some meaning to some people, and to me, the number isn't what's important. To me, it's the relationship or the engagement that I have with whoever is following me, and that is really important. On top of that, when you break away from that public, I guess you could call them support crew, and you start to then look inwards to your your inner group, your inner circle. I realized that didn't have to be very big to feel loved, to feel supported. You know, that inner circle of mates and family can be really small and still have a huge impact on your well-being. And what I had found is when I had allowed that inner circle to be too large, you would get a few fakies that would kind of sneak their way in, you know, that they claim to be close to you, or that they love you, or that they respect you. And then you eventually come to find that that isn't the truth. And so you start to weed them out, and that group gets a bit smaller. But the smaller it gets, the stronger that group becomes, because you realize that you all feel the same way about each other. And so you're always going to have each other's back. You're always going to be there to call you an idiot when you need to be called an idiot, but you also are going to be, the first person to congratulate you and feel truly happy for their successes. And that's also made me a lot happier doing that.
After a horrible start to my career, I had 3 jobs in 8 months. I started to turn it around when I was 27 years old. I had the chance to work directly for someone who had started 2 Fortune 500 companies. And when I left that job for an unfunded, untested startup commuting from Los Angeles to Boston, people thought I had lost my mind. And I took a big risk. And at the end of the day, our company went public when I was 31 years old, and it resulted in a large financial gain. And what I learned at that point in time, and there was a lot of notoriety at that time because there weren't a lot of companies that were founded by at least one. I was one of 4 founders. I was 31 years old. At some point, our company had a $35 billion valuation, which was insane when you think about it. It ultimately ended up losing 99.7% of its market value. Went down at one point $49 million, but it's now back up to, I think, $16 billion. But right in that heat of the moment where there's a lot of publicity regarding you, I learned something that was very interesting, and which was when you make a lot of money or you're successful, there are an enormous number of people who are not happy for you. And it was really a wake-up call. Wow, how could this be? I love reading about people who are successful. I want my friends to be successful. You experience that as well. I mean, what's behind all of this when you start winning and you have all these haters? How do you deal with it, and why do you think people do it?
You know, there's been a handful of times on tour where a moment of that for me was pure joy, some type of success that I couldn't believe I was able to achieve, and I would look around going, well, who can I share this with? Oh, I'm going to share it with these people out here. And then you try to, and you realize, wait a minute, they aren't actually thrilled. I actually had a roommate one time. I'd won my very first major championship, my first one of my career. I was on the most insane adrenaline run. I was so excited. And my roommate hadn't congratulated me yet. And it was at the end of the night, and we're kind of, you know, I'm laying on my bed. I look over to him on his bed and I say, you know, I won today, right? Like, I won my first major. I'm like, are you not happy for me? And he said the weirdest thing. He said, why would I be happy for you? And I said, whoa. I'm like, I don't know, because we're mates and something good happened to me. And he goes, yeah, but, you know, you can be happy for you, but why would I be happy for you? Like, I didn't win. And I said, but if you won, I'd be happy for you. And that's when I kind of realized when you're competing, to take it personal is it's hard not to. But to him, it was a business transaction. He didn't win. Therefore, he didn't provide, or he didn't attain a goal of his. And therefore, whilst it might appear to be selfish from everyone else, or I guess it could be considered selfish, but to him, it's like, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to win. I'm not here to be a cheerleader for anybody else. And I couldn't understand it, because for me, I'm not saying that you've got to, you know, support every single player on tour, but you know, your roommates, right? Your closer, smaller inner circle, perhaps. And it wasn't felt from me that that's how it was perceived by the other players, even within that inner circle. I don't know why people do it, because I just think it comes down to a lack of happiness. Like, if I see success from someone else and I feel genuinely happy for that person, it just makes me happier that I'm feeling a version of happiness for someone, and to share it with them, or to encourage them that how great they were. Like, to me, that just makes me a happier person. And I can't see why it would make someone else unhappy to do that. But I think when it comes to, you know, the elite of business or sport, there is an element of jealousy that comes in. You know, it's, why did they get the promotion and not me? I wanted the promotion. I wanted to win that event. That's what I want to do, and this other person is doing it. I can tell you that if you're someone that has success very seldomly, you don't feel it nearly as much as someone who has a lot of success. As the more success you have, the better business deals that you do, it definitely feels like you are more and more alienated from those in that environment around you. You know, from that inner circle that's beyond it, sure, you might still get and feel that love. But for me on tour, the more I won, the lonelier it got. And it's not a new story. We've all heard it, you know, it's lonely at the top, but I experienced that for the very first time in that way. And yeah, the hardest part is I just didn't have anyone here, no family, no inner circle friends from back home. And so you're trying to deal with this loneliness, these haters, your competitors hating that you're winning. You know, the only thing that I could really rely on was my sponsors, because they were thrilled that I was winning, right? They're seeing their product win. And so it wasn't the worst to have them as that support crew, but you also wonder, like, you know, are you happy for me, or are you happy for the business that's doing well through me? And so you have to navigate that, which luckily for me, I think the company itself, I've been there 20 plus years now, so I feel like it's gone beyond a business transaction. We're definitely very close with each other, but it is a question, Randall, that I often ask people when they don't seem happy for whom I thought was in their inner circle. And I say, I'm telling you, this is unhealthy for you, because if your success is the only cause for your happiness, then if you aren't successful, you're going to be miserable. And no one wants to live a life of misery and not base it purely on success or not. Like, you have to find value in things around you that aren't focused purely on your own success levels to create happiness. And I don't know, I try to share that with the younger competitors out here right now. I hope they listen, because I went through it, I saw it, and I can tell you that it's not a great way to live. If you know, you want everyone else to fail and you want to be the only successful one. Life doesn't give you that. So you can't expect it. You've got to find the joys in other things, in other people.
When our company went public, I was 31 years old, and there were not a lot of 31-year-olds, especially in Los Angeles. The tech market there hadn't really taken off. Now it's one of the premier tech hubs in the United States, large amount of startups, venture capital firms, but it wasn't like that back then. So there were only a few of us, one in particular who had really done very, very well. His company had gone public when he was 26 years old, and it's very lonely. You do talk about the loneliness. You do talk about attention, criticism, and I was 31. It bothered me, and it happened very, very quickly. It wasn't like we had started this 10 years before our company, and this is a record that will never happen again. It went public a year later, once we had started the company. But it was very, very helpful to me to speak to someone who had been through something similar like this at a young age, because it's very lonely. There's no one else to talk to. And he gave me some great advice, which was, among many other things, tune out the haters, and don't listen to them. And it's hard to do, frankly. You're young, immature to some extent, and new to this entirely new, life-changing event for you, where in my case, I bought a beautiful house, my dream house, and I was 31 years old. And at some point, it was a little unusual to have your friends come over, because I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment next to the Jack in the Box. I went from that to a very beautiful, large home. And it's just something that was very, very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, the tune them out part is it's a conscious decision that you have to make, right? And even when you said you bring your friends over, and it's a conscious decision that you have to make to be able to find the weeds. But more importantly, you know, you have to allow yourself to be okay that this is a part of the game you're playing. This is a part of it. You can't change the rules. Some people will not like that you have become successful. That's ingrained in the coding of success. That's just it. Deal with it. And if you try to think that you can recode it, that you can change all of these people's opinions about your success and that they will overnight or over a period of time become happy for you, you're chasing an impossible goal, and it's not going to end well for you. And so the tuning out, whilst it's really difficult, if you can take a step back and say, well, what's really important? Like, what is really important? Is this individual person that I'm reading or that I'm hearing from, are they that important to me that it matters? And the answer to that, for the most part, is no. They're not that important to me. Do I care that Twitter user 11213 hates me? Like, no. I don't know this person. I'm never going to know this person. And so you start to chop the fat really quickly. Those are the easy ones. When it gets a little harder, it's like, when you invite your friends into your new beautiful home and they're still living in a small 1-bedroom apartment somewhere and they're struggling to pay the rent or whatever it might be, and they see what you have, that jealousy, if it's too much for them and it comes out, that's a difficult one, because sometimes we have people that we think are going to be there for you or have that happiness for you, and they're not there for you, or they don't have that happiness for you. Those are the ones that are really hard to let go of, because you've probably experienced time with them. You've experienced thing when you were potentially both on the same playing field, where you financially you might have had the same stuff, or career-wise you might have achieved the same things. And then when you go beyond it and they stay stuck there, that's a really hard one. For me, it's more on them, right? And dealing with that issue on their side than it is for me to have to deal with it. But letting those people go is hard. It's really, really hard, but it's the right thing to do, because you just don't want to spend your time with people who are looking at ways to pull you down a peg or two. You want people to lift you up. It was actually a quote Norm Duke gave me that I'll never forget. And when a lot of the haters were very vocal on tour, Norm came out in support of me. He would comment in interviews at how great I was and how incredible the things that I'm doing. And that was one of the very emotional times, is my idol was actually stepping up for me. Like, they say don't meet your idols. Well, I'm so grateful that I did meet mine, because this man was an incredible human being. And I approached him one time and I said, Norm, why are you saying these things? And you don't have to. You don't have to do this. You're a Norm Duke. Everyone loves you. The bowling, you're not saying nice things about me is not changing your career. And he said, au contraire, that it is, though. And I said, why? He said, well, let me give you 2 scenarios and tell me which one you would rather have come true. If I were to trash you and I was to say that you're awful and that you're a terrible talent, and then let's say we were to compete against each other, well, now I'm supposed to win because I've just trashed you. I've said to everybody that you're awful. And so now if I beat you, there is just this expectation of, ho-hum, this was meant to happen because Norm's so great and he's so bad. But if you beat me after I've just trashed you, what does that look like for me? Okay? Now, conversely, if I tell people how great you are, if I lose to you, well, he's great. There's no shame in losing to someone who's great. And if I beat you after telling the world that how great you are, he said it elevates me. He said the only other thing I would add to this is don't say something unless you think it to be true. So don't lie. Don't say that someone is great at something if they're not, but find something that they are great at and focus on that. Use that as the point of reference when talking about them, because it's only going to elevate you when you win against them. And it just slapped me across the face. This bucket of water just, in real time hit me in the face. Like, he's so right. Like, people who say that I'm awful when I beat them, what do they say back next? Well, what's the next thing they say? Because they've lost that leverage. They no longer can say that I'm bad, because if I beat them, they're below me. They're behind me. So what does it say about themselves? And I love what Norm taught me then, because I try to find a positive in someone's bowling, even if it's someone who I've known has been quite nasty to me. If asked directly about them as a player, I think about, well, what are they great at? And you know what? If they're great at it, they should get credit for it. They've spent a lifetime developing that skill. I don't have a problem telling somebody that they're doing something really well. If anything, it just makes me motivate me even more to be better at it than them. And so it's just one less thing that they have against me when they want to trash me. So I don't know. I often think about that thing that Norm said.
Are you looking for your next great gift to surprise a friend, colleague, or loved one? Bliss Beaches makes the perfect gift. This best-selling bright and beautiful coffee table book by Randall Kaplan features stunning drone photography from exotic beach locations around the world. It's the perfect housewarming gift, a great addition to any home or office, and a fun and creative alternative to bringing a bottle of wine to somebody's house for dinner. Bliss Beaches is available for purchase on Amazon, where it has glowing reviews and a 5-star rating. Get your next amazing gift and order a copy of Bliss Beaches by clicking the link in our show notes.
So many of our listeners and viewers right now are thinking, how do you bowl with two hands? I think we can all see it when we're 18 years old or 4 years old, but describe for us the technique, the RPMs, the science behind it. And does this take a harder toll on your body after in the long term, in terms of what you can keep doing from an endurance perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I don't know. I don't know any other way. All I can tell you is that I wake up every morning and I feel fit. I feel good. I don't have aches. I don't have pains. And so I don't know what the style will do in the long term for everybody. I think everybody's different. Injury is a part of sport. And so I do my best to try to prevent injury as much as I can, like most athletes try to do. But I just don't know the science. If it, there's a specific percentage on how much less friction on this part of the body is caused. I don't know. I just know that it doesn't hurt me. I think the best way to describe how I do what I do, if I were to use only words, is imagine a rugby pass. That's how I bowl, like a pass in rugby. And if you're not a rugby fan and you don't know what that is, then the best way to describe it is go to YouTube and type in my name and then just watch it for yourself. That's the easiest and fastest way to figure out how it is to do what I do. But the interesting thing is, in today's bowling climate, there's the number that gets thrown around a little bit is somewhere between 70 and 80 million people go bowling in the US alone every year. And it's said that close to 30% of that bowling public will bowl two-handed or try two-handed now. And to me, that is just the most wild thing to think about, because you grow up as an individual, as a solar, you know the word I'm trying to say, the singularity. That's the word I was looking for. Let me say that again. And so it's super wild to me that there's such a high percentage of people that are now trying to, because growing up, when you're an individual, you're a singularity, to see hundreds of thousands, millions of people attempt to do what you do, it's, to be part of a movement that has, allowed a new technique to become normalized is, dude, it is wild. It is really wild.
Let's talk about some stats. You mentioned 70 million people in the United States. There's roughly 100 million people in the world who bowl. The first documented appearance of bowling appeared in ancient Egypt, with wall drawings depicting bowling being found in a royal Egyptian tomb dated to 3200 BC, and miniature pins and balls in an Egyptian child's grave around the same time, 3200 BC. Balls were made using the husks of grains covered in a material such as leather and bound with strings. The bowling industry has grown from 4 billion in 2014 to 10 billion in 2018, and is projected to go to 60 or 70 billion in the next 5 to 10 years. It's an affordable sport. A lot of families will do it. The TV contracts are very, very small today. They're on, Fox did a deal in 2018. It's not even on a Fox channel. It's on Fox FS1, I think, is the channel. Could bowling be the next WWE or Formula One? Or even pickleball, which is the fastest growing sport in America?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, for sure. Just to kind of touch on that comment about Fox. In fact, our relationship with Fox has been really, really great. This last season that just went by, we were on big Fox network television. Nearly, I think it was like 10 times out of the 18 times that we were on television. So more than half of it now was on the major network. And that relationship is growing more and more positively. And who's to say that, all of bowling doesn't move to network television rather than being on FS1. And so that's a really positive thing. The industry as a whole is a dragon. It is a wild beast. And the amount of people that go bowling every year allows the sport itself many opportunities to grow. What we hope and what we rely on is that the people who are running the different parts of our organizations and parts of our industry do the right thing, do their research and make great decisions. Because ultimately, those stats, everything, it just doesn't matter if you've got the wrong people at the helm, And so I'm hoping that our sport chooses the right people, that they make the best decisions. And then who's to say that we can't be, another version of WWE? I don't know why we couldn't be more successful. I mean, WWE is pretty huge. I mean, it'd be quite arrogant of me to suggest that we would be as big as them, but the idea of it growing on that same kind of bell curve, because at one point WWE or WWF at one point, it wasn't as successful as it is today, And so why not think we can do something similar? I'd like to think I'm an optimist in that regard. I like to think the best can happen.
Let's talk about your World Series comeback. After 71 games, you trailed fifth place by 324 pins. You had 12 matches to make up the deficit. And you had this quote that you've given, and this is how you think about a tournament. I think I've won before I even throw a ball down the lane. How important is mental preparation and confidence to our success?
It's a huge element to the recipe of success, to the self-belief, the confidence in believing you're capable. If you don't have that, I assure you someone else does. And beating that person becomes exponentially harder. So you've got to walk into the boardroom, the business, the bowling center, the golf course, and you have to have that belief that no one here is going to win this tournament or do a better deal than you. No one. And it's a very fine line between arrogance and confidence. I get it. So you have to choose your words sometimes very carefully when you're trying to present that confidence. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. If you believe it, then you're already a step ahead of someone else who doesn't feel that way.
All of us dream as a kid we want to be successful. At some point in our life, we want to be the next Tom Brady, and we hope to be LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. What was it like dreaming as a kid that you wanted to be the best? And what kind of responsibilities do you have today that you are the GOAT in bowling, you're the best ever? And what are your responsibilities going forward in the sport and to the community at large?
Yeah, I think when you're young, the understanding of what it means to be the best in the world, it's I don't think the gravity of it really hits you. It's more of just the thing that you say, right? And as you get older, you understand what it's going to take. And that's the moment that you have to like buy into it. The sacrifice, the dedication, the time that you're going to give up to chase this idea, this dream that you have. That's when it gets difficult, because when you start to realize what it's going to be worth in for you to do it, yeah, if you don't buy into it 100%, you're not going to get there. So you have to do that. I think for me, understanding that the juice is worth the squeeze, as they say, that's what motivates me now. Is you may call me the GOAT, someone else may call me the GOAT, but I have my own position that I think I'm at, and I have my own goals that I want to reach. And the moment that I get complacent in allowing myself to say, hey, well, Randall thinks I'm the GOAT, so I'm good, I'm done, that's when I think my career will suffer its biggest fall, is allowing others to dictate where I think I should be. I'm not there yet. There's so much more for me to do. Therefore, the motivation levels have to be high. The sacrifice still has to be high. And the belief that I'm going to reach my own goals has still got to be there. If I do those things, when it's time to lace them up, then I'm very happy to look back at my career and stack it up against anybody else's. And we can argue black and blue, who's the best ever. But I'm not there yet. So I got to get there.
Tiger Woods single-handedly increased the popularity of golf. You have single-handedly increased the popularity of bowling. People want to see you. They know you. You're the star of the circuit, but you're also a lot more than that. You've done some things that are very unique that have raised your profile and made you a more well-rounded person, an entrepreneur as well. Tell us about the Google glasses and throwing a 140-mile-an-hour strike outside of a NASCAR car.
Yeah, I mean, and this kind of loops back into, because I didn't get a chance to actually answer your other question about responsibilities, what I think my responsibility is. But I think part of all of what you just said is it's fun. It's so much fun doing this type of stuff, to actually take the game that I love and that I do competitively and be able to not do it at that level, to be able to just do something fun and crazy is awesome. But it also, I think, is part of the responsibility of creating awareness of the game and to generating a respect, I guess an acknowledgement that we exist. Bowling definitely has taken a back seat in terms of the mainstream media sports. And so doing a Dude Perfect video, throwing a ball out of a NASCAR, whilst fun, it's promoting the game and just letting everybody know, hey, we're still here and I'm a part of it. And doing interviews like this, again, broadens that reach a little bit. To be very specific with what it's like to do Dude Perfect and NASCAR in particular, the guys from Dude Perfect, they're brilliant guys. Very thoughtful, very funny, love what they do, and their craft is, well, you see it through their videos. They truly love what they do. Throwing a ball out of a NASCAR was something I never thought I'd be doing in my life, but going around the track with Eric Almirola was just that, to get in the seat and say, yeah, drive as fast as you want. And just for him to smash that track and go quick was thrilling enough, let alone holding a bowling ball in my lap and making that last turn saying, are we good? And he gives me the thumbs up, and then I throw the ball out the window trying to get a strike. Doing all of those things.
Can you say that again? Because we lost you for about 30 seconds there. Throwing the ball from a NASCAR car. Can you just pick it up there?
Yeah, and so, never did I think throwing a ball out of a NASCAR would be something that I was doing. But, in fact, just sitting in the car with Eric Almirola and saying to him, yeah, hit the track as hard as you want. Like, I love speed, and letting him just flog this car around the track. And just that in itself was thrilling. That was exciting, just to sit in the car, let alone have a bowling ball in my lap, seeing the pins on the road coming up, him moving into position and then kind of giving him the thumbs up that it's good to go, and then throwing a ball out there to only then somehow throw it at the right trajectory, hit the track at the right spot to get the strike. That was an incredible moment. And actually a little fun fact about that is right after we nailed that strike, the engine itself overheated and the car was unavailable for us to use for the rest of the day. So it was like, we didn't even know it, but it happened to be our last attempt before the car overheated. And so it was just one of those wild, it was meant to be, the universe was saying you were going to get it now because the car's about to blow up.
We talked about mental preparation as being one of the most important factors in our success. Can you talk about something I call extreme preparation, preparing way more than anybody else, and how it's been important and a crucial element of your success, and give us some examples, please?
Yeah, experience is the first thing I would say that helps you understand what preparation really means. I think when you're younger, you have it's almost, there's an arrogance to like, I don't need to practice. I don't need to worry about this thing. I'll rely on my natural talent. And so that, realization that when it's not true, you have to be able to dedicate time into the preparation of, all right, where are you going? What are you doing? Why didn't you do well the last time you did this? And when you start to think of it like that and you start to be honest with yourself, and I think that's probably key, right, Randall, is having an honest discussion with yourself as to the things that are causing you not to do as well as you possibly could, then you can start to rectify those things. But, you see it all the time. You see the boxer who thinks he's the best boxer ever that's ever, stepped into a ring, and yet someone will say, but yeah, you don't have the great defense. And he says, I'm the greatest defender there ever is in boxing. And then all of a sudden he gets in a ring with someone who's faster and better than he, and the defense doesn't hold up and he gets knocked out. It's like, well, if you had have been honest with yourself that there was improvement there, you might have been able to block that punch. But now you get, smashed in the face and you're on the canvas. So the same thing can be said about, pretty much everything else is, if you know there's a weakness, then acknowledge it. It's not shameful. Everyone's human. We're not all perfect. So the goal is to figure out where you can improve and then dedicate time in doing that. And I think that's part of the preparation, is the understanding of where you want to go, but what is required to get there, and what elements do you not have that is holding you back from getting there. Those honest questions that need to be answered honestly then need action after it to rectify it. So if you can do all that, I think you got a big chance of being successful.
Before we finish today, I want to go ahead and ask some more open-ended questions. I call this part of my podcast, Fill in the Blank to Excellence. Are you ready to play?
Fire away.
The biggest lesson I've learned in my life is
to love yourself.
My number one professional goal is
I want to leave a legacy that's impossible to catch.
My number one personal goal is
to incrementally become a better human being every day.
One of the things on your bucket list is to play a few games with Roger Federer. Are you going to achieve that goal at some point in your life?
Pretty much retired from tennis now, so he's got more time on his hands. So there may be an opportunity now to be able to, find him somewhere. But I'll leave that one to the universe to handle. If they put us on the same path somewhere, to be able to hit a tennis ball with him or bowl a ball with him would be definitely a highlight. Why
not just pick up the phone and call him? I am 99% confident he would bowl or play around in tennis with you being the greatest bowler in history.
Yeah, I might just start looking up the possible phone numbers of the world and just start dialing random ones and saying, hello, is this Roger Federer? No? Okay. Scratch that number off the list and just keep going until eventually I hear Roger's voice and I go, I knew I'd finally get you. Roger, would you like to have a game of bowling with me. I don't have his number. I don't really have a way to contact him. But like I said, if the universe wants us to pair up at some point, we will.
Okay. You can call us management company, agency. It's a public record. And once we're off the show, I'm going to help you do that. If you could go back in time, the one piece of advice you'd give to your 21-year-old self is it's not always meant to be easy. So deal with the challenges, accept that that's part of life, and not expect it to be easy, because it shouldn't be. If you could meet one person in the world, who would it be? Other than Roger Federer.
If I could meet one person in the world?
Yes.
Look, this is a weird one, but I don't know. I actually don't know why this person more than any other person, but Judge Judy Shineland. I'm a huge fan of Judge Judy. I love her show. I think it's outrageous. And I just love the way that any interview I've ever seen of her, she seems like someone who is just oozing with wisdom. Like the way she talks about things, it is not over complex. She really simplifies it, but boy, does she have some great pieces of wisdom, and she's hilarious. I'd love to just have dinner with her. That would be just a thrill.
Jason, this has been awesome. I greatly appreciate your time. You have a phenomenal story. I love bowling. I hope people will go out and play bowling. I hope they'll watch you. I hope they'll follow your career. And I really appreciate you being on my show. Thank you for doing In Search of Excellence today.
Randall, not a problem in the world. Thank you for hosting me. And I'll continue to listen to other guests that you have on your podcast. It's a great podcast. So I'm enjoying what I'm learning through you. And I, again, appreciate you having me on your show.